Greetings, welcome to Hexed Countered. I'm Joe. In this video, we'll be taking a first look at the game GD42, Grossdeutschland. This is from the Tactical Combat Series from MMP The Gamers. This was designed by Wig Graves and is part of the TCS or Tactical Combat Series. Originated by Dean Essig with the Gamers, and this one is about the Grossdeutschland division, as you might guess from the title, and is actually kind of a series within a series. So within the TCS series, I believe there are three games dealing with the Grossdeutschland unit, which started actually as a regiment, and I think it ended up at the end of the war as maybe a corps. But at this point in the GD42 game, it is a division. There is also a GD40, which deals with at the time, regiments' actions in France in 1940. And then in GD41, is concerned with the Operation Barbarossa, the time that the unit spent in that operation. And this is 42, so this is obviously the second year of the war in Russia and is the, I guess, newest or most recent of the series. So let's take a look at the back of the box here. So this is November of 42. Now, as part of Operation Mars, the Soviet 238th Rifle Division, supported by tanks of the 49th Tank Brigade, attacked into the Luchesa Valley, trying to create a breach for the waiting 3rd Mechanized Corps to exploit. For reasons still unknown, right before the attack, the German 9th Army ordered 3 battalions of the Grossdeutschland Division to move to the Luchesa Valley as an OKH reserve, thus reinforcing the weak 216th Grenadier Regiment. Because of the presence of the Grossdeutschland, the Soviets were unable to force a breakthrough and decided to commit the 3rd Mechanized Corps into the meat grinder to force the issue. GD42 covers the desperate battle for survival of the Grossdeutschland Division as it faced down the entire Soviet 3rd Mechanized Corps with more than 200 tanks over several days. Designer Wig Graves conducted extensive research combining both German and Soviet sources to create the order of battle. The Soviets begin with seemingly overwhelming force, while the Germans trade space for time and attempt to rush reinforcements to the front to plug inevitable gaps. While the Germans are primarily on the defense, careful counterattacks against the relatively immobile Soviet formations can prove to be key to victory. And if the Soviets do not preserve their forces carefully, they will end with the historical result: stable German lines and an entire mechanized corps wrecked. So GD42 uses the new Tactical Combat Series rules. This is Rules 4.0. And some of the features, according to the box here, are vehicle impulses increase operational tempo for tanks, the introduction of spotting ranges, streamlined assault rules, combined area and point fire table, introduction of morale for vehicles, enhanced combined arms effects, and an artillery subsystem that has been improved. Now we've got 3 22 by 34 inch maps in here, 3 counter sheets containing 840 half-inch counters, 1 TCS 4.0 series rulebook, 2 TCS 4.0 charts, 1 GD42 rulebook, 2 morale charts, and 2 dice. Our complexity is marked as medium-high, and our solitaire suitability is medium. Now before I crack into the box here, I did want to mention that the reason I'm doing this particular game is as part of my Platoon-Level Tactical Series. This obviously is, well, maybe not obviously, but this is a Platoon-Level Tactical game, a Platoon-Level Tactical Series. And the other series I've done in this particular series have all been, I don't want to say easier or simpler, they've just been less complex, maybe, would be the best way to say it. This game has some unique features, and we'll get into that here in a minute when we go into the box. But for those who've watched the other entries in the Platoon-Level Tactical Series, this is kind of a step up in complexity and will require, a little bit more work, I guess, mental work, as far as keeping everything straight. So having said that, I should probably provide my disclaimer at this point that when I do the gameplay video here in sometime in the near future, I will almost undoubtedly screw some stuff up. But for now, let's bust into this box and see what's inside. Okay, let's pull the lid off. All right, so as is kind of the case, oh man, can I pick this up or what? So as is generally the case with MMP, they provide a little note in here that tells you everything that should be in the box, so you make sure you have everything, and it even tells you how to contact them if you have any issues with anything missing. Here are our 2 dice, standard red, standard white, D6. And we've got some rules. Now this is the specific rules for this game. So let's put this to the side for the moment. We have a map sheets. This is actually the op sheet, I'm sorry. So the op sheet, and we'll talk about this in a minute. This is one of the things that is unique to this series amongst all the various 6 series that we're going to look at as part of this look at platoon-level tactical games. We have a player aid here with the sequence of play. So you can see you have a command phase, an aircraft and artillery phase, the various action phases, a cleanup phase, and a turn end. Command prep table. Again, the command system in this is what separates it from the other games. Well, there are some other things too. But to me, that's the biggest thing that separates this from the other games we've looked at in the series. Inside here, we've got artillery spotting and anti-tank rolls. So a bunch of different tables. Your fire resolution stuff is here. So you can see there's a morale table. There's infantry firepower, all kinds of things in here. And on the back, you have common chart graphics. So again, this is going to be your chart of common graphic symbols, sorry, for your commands. You actually have to write out commands in this game, which, like I said, is something that's unique to this system, at least as far as the 6 games or 6 series that we're looking at here. Here we have a German morale chart. Here are our series rules. So this is where I wanted to start, but let's see what else is in the box first. Here is a second aid identical to the first, and this is for the other player. And then, of course, we would also have a Soviet morale chart to cover both sides. And you can actually see on here, same is true for the Germans, that you have various units, the 1319 Regiment, the 114th Rifle, 39th Tank, your motorized, etc., all kinds of stuff on here. And the Germans, of course, have the same thing on there as the various units that are involved. Your Grossdeutschland infantry division. You've got the various regiments, etc. underneath here. And so on. Various battalions. Yeah, okay. Here are our maps, so we'll look at that in a bit. And then below the maps, of course, are our counters. And we, like I said, we will look at that in a moment. So here are our series rules. Now, they are 32 pages long, according to this. If we flip this over, you see 32 pages at the bottom here. So, I have read the rules online prior to, because as you saw, I hadn't opened this box. I was keeping it because I like to do my first looks as a legitimate first look where I have not seen the components yet. So it's almost like one of those reaction videos you see on YouTube, but not really. I mean, it's kind of in a similar vein, maybe, perhaps. But I want to be surprised, generally speaking. I'm usually not surprised, let's be honest, but you know what I'm saying. Okay, so here we go. You've got the table of contents. You've got the case system. I mean, if you're familiar with anything that was ever done by the gamers, MMP, then you've seen this type of thing. I mean, it's not unique to them either. The introduction talks about what the TCS is, contains realistic playable games of specific tactical actions during and after World War II. The system's emphasis is on command and combined arms effects. That's the key thing. This is very, very focused on command and combined arms, as you might expect. I mean, it literally says so, right? General game concepts, the map. You've got a hex numbering system, etc. Nothing revolutionary there. Rule books, the organization of the rules, the scale of the game. So each turn is 20 minutes or an hour at night. Each hex is 125 yards with a 20-meter contour interval, unless otherwise given in the game rulebook. So if you're unfamiliar with what that means, that basically means elevation. Contour is the same as elevation, essentially. Several games have a 10-meter contour interval. Others use 125 meter per hex scale. So yards, meters, they're roughly similar, as you probably already know. Yards are slightly smaller. The personnel units are generally platoons. Weapon units, anti-tank guns, infantry guns usually represent 1 gun. Mortar and machine gun units represent 2 to 3 weapons. Artillery counters can represent either 1 gun or a battery of 2 to 6 guns. Vehicle units, tanks and other AFVs, or armored vehicles, maybe just armored vehicles, that's what it says, represent either single vehicles or platoons of 2 to 6 vehicles, in which case the number of vehicles is indicated on the counter. You got carrier counters, represent sufficient vehicles, usually 2 to 3, to carry a full infantry platoon or tow 2 larger guns or cannons. Rounding rule, you round standard way. 0 to 49 is down, 50 to 99 is up. Fog of war. This relates largely to the op sheets that we'll talk about here in a bit. Die roll, sequence of play goes through your sequence of play. And we'll go through this when we do the gameplay, of course. Unit types, infantry units, so you can see what the counters look like, and we'll see that in a bit. Target and fire types, multi-step counters, and modes. So you have various modes. All units in the game can be in one of 2 modes. It's over here. Fire mode or move mode. And then how do you change modes? We have mode effects, stacking, limits, commands. So commands are extremely important. And here you have an op sheet. So the op sheet, as we saw, that was the first thing, I think the first thing we saw in the box was the op sheet. You have op sheets and you write in, basically you draw it in what your plan is. And both sides do this, and then you have to carry out the commands. So unlike most hex and counter war games where you basically have this godlike view of the battlefield and you react and make decisions moment to moment, this one you make a plan and you carry out the plan. So you have limited flexibility, much as you would in real life. If you send, if you send some platoons off in a certain direction, you can't necessarily easily change them up. You can, but there's repercussions of doing that type of thing. So this is a complex fire and movement attack op sheet with a fish motif. And by that they mean objective tuna and shark, etc. Right? And then you have carp, trout, and bass. So literally a fish motif. Op sheet types. Right? And again, I'm not going to go overly much into this because this is just a first look. Then you have a simpler attack sheet with a tree motif, right? So you have kind of a diversionary move in this direction for support, perhaps, and then you have a kind of flanking move around here to come up on objective oak. So you can see this, and then here's an elastic defense one. So even if you're on defense, you should still have a plan, and you have defensive positions and then a fallback route. So initial positions, secondary fallback, and then a further fallback. And command prep, there's command prep time. It's pretty complex. You can see like this goes on for a little bit. There's several pages just on the command sheets. Then you get into your visibility and spotting and your line of sight and all kinds of stuff with that, which is a little bit more advanced than some of the other systems we've seen with looking at elevations, standard elevation determination. You can see that this is a lot more complex than what we've seen before. Maybe I shouldn't say a lot more, but it is significantly more complex than what we've seen before in most cases. and then, you know, figuring out your distance in hexes. And so finally you get to fire combat, and you have two forms of fire combat in this series: area fire and point fire. And they call them A firers and P firers. And you can see right here, A firers can only conduct area fires. P firers may conduct either point fires or area fires. So point firing is more flexible. All fire combat is resolved using the fire table, but each type of fire uses a somewhat different procedure. So then it goes through the rules for that. And again, I'm not going to get into the overly much into the specifics, because that's what the playthrough is for. But you can see, like, we're only halfway through the rule book. And so you've got a whole lot more in here. Rules for all kinds of things: suppression, paralysis, surrender, vehicle morale, artillery, smoke, movement, minefields, breaching, assault combat, overruns, special units, integrated carriers, mortars, anti-tank guns, infantry, on-map artillery, anti-aircraft guns, aircraft sorties, night rules, scenario setups, how to play solitaire, which is important for me since I do most of my gaming solitaire. Then we have our developer notes, which provide some thoughts on the system overall. Then, of course, you have your game-specific rules. So some general special rules: snow, terrain, changes to the command and control rules, setup and reinforcement, special rules for the Germans in terms of artillery, air power, movement, replacements, and radio intercept. Soviet special rules for artillery, mortars, air power, Soviet tank restrictions, Soviet tanks as carriers. You know, the Soviets famously carried infantry into battle on tanks. Soviet commissars, Soviet southern flank, replacements, and then scenarios. So you have multiple scenarios. The center gives ground, attack in the south, first assault, and then a campaign, which starts on 29 November of 42. And you have the river line hold, southern flank is turned. Then you could start the campaign a day later, storm across the Lucchesa, halted in the south, a 1st December campaign start. So there are a lot of variations in here, and that's the bulk of what's in the specific rules, is various scenarios, and then you have designer notes. And it talks about the Grossdeutschland in 1942. As 1942 opened, the infantry regiment Grossdeutschland was holding ground northeast of Orel. The situation was stable, and the battalions were able to refit and recover some of the losses from the December 41 battles near Tula. And then it talks about how it got reorganized into a division down here. So great history here. One thing about the Grossdeutschland that bears mentioning probably is that although it was a named organization, it was not SS. This was regular Wehrmacht. So regular army, not an SS unit. So I just thought I'd point that out, because some people, I think, have the misconception that this was actually an SS unit, and it was not. So let's look at the map. Well, let's do counters first, and then we'll talk about the map. Just get the whole box out here. So we have 3 maps. They are stacked in between the counters. So we have counter sheets, of course, right? So here are some units, and you can see they have a color band that kind of goes along to identify their unit. You can see we have some orange up here and some kind of like tan in here. Then various markers, right? More units, and then we have some Germans up here. Well, if we come up higher, you can get a better look maybe. So we have some flak guns. So these are guns mostly, and then you have pioneer units down here. And we have some aircraft. You have a Ju-88, a Junkers 88, and the famous Junkers 87, aka the Stuka. More units here. These are Soviets, of course. So you can see the artwork is very nice. You've got your factors here for combat and movement. And again, we'll get into this when we do the gameplay, but just wanted to give you a good look at what the counters look like. They're very nice. They're standard MMP type counters, but you know, MMP generally does some pretty nice work art-wise and pretty much component-wise throughout. And then this one is, of course, more Germans. And yep, I'm looking for armor. There's some armor right here. So you've got some Stug 3Fs here and some Panzer IVs as well. So you can see what an armored unit looks like. And then on the Soviet side, I didn't really show this, but we have some T-34s, of course, as you might expect as well. Yep. All right, let's I'm going to take a pause and reset so I can show the maps. Okay, so here we can see probably about 2/3 of the northern map, map N. Okay, you have your scatter diagram for artillery, etc. The logo for the game, and then you can see kind of the way the terrain is laid out. The contour lines are clear, and the maps are very well done. I mean, it's muted colors, browns and greens, as you might expect for terrain. Nice little trees, etc. You've got some water at the south, and I'll show you that in a moment. But, you know, buildings are illustrated. School, Motkino, this would be a village. We have a village over here. Sosnovatka, Yamishka. My Russian, not good. Just you know, anyone who speaks Russian that watches this, I apologize for butchering your pronunciations here. We have Vaskovo over here, Lomov over here. If we push up, you can see some of these have, like Vaskovo here with a 2, would be a victory area, I believe. And then you have Veriaista here. It says 12/3/42. Probably something related to a date, would be my guess. And it extends out to the east as well. So this would be the eastern end of the map. And you can see we have the river here. That would be the Luchesa River, rather. Sorry, my accent likes to show up at inopportune times, and I drop my R's. This one is map W. It is oriented a little bit different. It's oriented a little differently than the other ones, which are more landscape. This is kind of portrait orientation, so taller than it is wide. You can see pretty much the whole thing here, at least the top half of it, or top third or more. So you have, again, towns, Vazoltsova, Voronino, Bovka, Belikovo, Dunino, Trevino down here, which is off. Yeah, that's off shot. But again, you get an idea, like you can clearly see the contours, and you have these marks here that tell you the elevation. So this is 210, this is 230, this is 240, we got 220 over here. So the elevations, as was mentioned in the series rules, typically the contours are 20. In this case, they're 10. And then, of course, it goes further south, and at the very bottom here in the corner, you can see this is map W, and we again have our scatter diagram. So some scenarios obviously will use various combinations or individual maps. That was map W. There is a third map. This one is map S. And again, it's just more of the same pretty much, but you get a general idea that there is a lot of contour in the land here. So kind of, you know, a valley with the river flowing through it. And then you have crests and so on with various elevations. This is 244.6, 240, 230, 220, etc. This is 210 where the river is. This would be the Luchesa. So this is the southern map. And down here at the very bottom right of the southern map, we have our turn track, basically for time. So you have it runs from 29 November to 4 December. With you would roll for weather for snow on a 9 or greater here, 10, 9, 8, 10, 11, and then the time of day. So you have night turns, obviously, which are 1 hour long, as was mentioned in the rules, and then each of the day turns are 20 minutes long. So that is the look here at the maps, and that is the last thing we were going to look at. So that will complete our first look at the game GD42 Grossdeutschland from MMP The Gamers. This is designed by Wig Graves. The series designer of the Tactical Combat series is Dean Essig, and our designer for this game was Lee Forrester. And as I mentioned earlier, this is part of my series on Platoon-Level Tactical games. This is the fifth game that I will be, or fifth game series that I will be talking about. I've done several, in some cases I've done several iterations of each of the first four. Those four are all on the channel. I don't feel like I need to go through all of them list-wise. There is a playlist for them. Just search for Platoon-Level Tactical, and you should be able to find those if you are interested in seeing the other games as well as this one. So I will hopefully get a playthrough of this game done within a month. I'm trying to be a little bit more realistic in my timescales and estimates, because I do have a new job and it has impacted my free time, and I don't want to make promises I cannot keep. So my goal is within a month. We'll see if I can hit that goal or not. There is another game, another series that we will also be adding to look at, the sixth and final one, I believe. I don't think I'm going to do any other ones, although there are a few others I could do. I don't want this thing to get too far out of hand. So that's going to do it for this look, at least. So, as always, if you would consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and that might be worthwhile for you. Even if you just share it or give it a like, that's great. If you don't feel like you want to subscribe, if you do subscribe, you can click the bell and get notifications when a new video is made. But even if you do none of those things, I hope you got something out of this video and will return for future entries. Come on, man. So that will do it for this one. My name's Joe. This, as always, is the Hexed Countered channel. And until next time, happy gaming.